Good morning, everyone. In today's session, we are going to talk about communication models. Let's see why communication models are important before we actually get into the communication models. Communication models, what are they and why they are relevant? Largely, what they do is the various types of communication models will come across as the session progresses. Now, what we need to understand is why they are relevant or why, in what context we study them, and why they're essential for us in the larger understanding of introduction to communication and journalism. Communication models are they are like proposed theories, or the different people have different ideas around the understanding of communication, and using different tools and elements, they offer us a certain kind of an experience through different science systems, different semiotic approaches, as to why uh, the interpretation of various types of communication are relevant or necessary. You would come across, you would come across terms like source, encoding, decoding, symbols, uh, approaches, noise, so on and so forth. Understand that what these things do, they are going to offer us some idea as to why communication models work as a preceding format to the extensive theories that we are going to discuss. So once we are familiar or thorough with different kinds of communication models, it will be relatively easier for us to relate to the various theories that we are going to discuss further in this semester. So let's begin with the various types of communication models. Primarily, the categorization is done on the basis of three different formats. The first one is the linear communication model, under which we are going to discuss the Lasswell's model, we are going to discuss the Aristotle's model, and the third one is the Berlow's SMCM model. Second one is the transaction model, under which we study Shannon and Weaver model, and the third one is the interactive model, where we discuss Graham's model and Dan's helical model. Okay, let's begin with the first one, which is called the linear model of communication. As the name suggests, this model of communication follows a linear format. What it means is the process of communication is one way. Okay, so there is no feedback involved in this proposed model of communication. So the person who is at the receiving end, or who we call as the receiver, is not contributing to the communication model by offering his or her feedback. So that thing is not possible. The message signal, second point is the message signal is encoded and transmitted through channel in the presence of noise. We need to understand here what a message signal is. Understand, in a communication process, the message or the content, as alternatively used, is always encoded by the source. So there is a process of encoding, there is a process of coding that happens. In the process of coding, there are two ways to look at it. One is that the message is encoded by the source, or the person who is creating the content, or the sender is encoding the content or has encoded the content, and once the transmission process is complete and it reaches the receiver is supposed to decode the message, you know decode the message, and for his or her better comprehensible understanding. Now you have to understand one thing here is why the message signal is encoded, and why it is crucial. The sender or the source of the content always encodes the message which is suitable for him or her to make the content suitable for transaction or suitable for transmission. And largely, the person who is doing so is encoding it in several ways. For example, you come across a news story about, let's say, the latest status of this pandemic in India. Now it's a news story. It's written in a certain way. There is a certain language that follows. It carries information that are relevant to the pandemic. It could be presented using different facts and figures and quotes of important people. And this news story, let's say 500 word news story worth reading, offers you different kind of information, offers us different kind of information. Now we are the receiver, the person who has written that story, or the news organizations which has published this particular news story is the source. So what the source does is, the very way this story has been presented to you could be reflective of how it is encoded, and then it is transmitted through a channel in the presence of noise. Okay, we are going to discuss about noise in details a little later. For now, you need to understand that in a communication process, a message signal is encoded by the sender. So here, that brings me to the next point, that the sender plays a very prominent role in the linear model of communication. It's always the sender's prerogative as to how he or she, or the source prerogative as to how they're going to offer the content, in what format they're going to offer the content, and what is the politics of the sender in order to offer the content in a certain way. This model of communication is applicable, like as you can see in the slide, is applicable to television, radio, and it is prominently, as mentioned, a one-way process. This we have discussed a little earlier also, when if you remember, I told you that in television and radio there is no immediate scope for offering feedback. So as a receiver, or as a listener, or as a viewer, you cannot directly communicate with the source, or you cannot directly communicate with the sender of this message or the creator of this message to offer your feedback, whether you like a certain program, whether you dislike, whether you agree with certain kind of arguments, so on and so forth. So this model of communication, you have to remember, the linear one essentially focuses on one-way process, is applicable to different kind of mass communication like television and radio, and sender plays a very significant role in this model. What are the key features of the linear model of communication? Let's see. So there is a sender, as you can see, there is a channel, there is a message, and there is a receiver. So sender is the one who is offering content or the message using a certain channel, and there is a receiver at one end, at the another end, to receive the content or to receive the message that the sender is offering. What are the key features? It's a one-way communication, I told about it. Second is, it is used for mass communication. Third one is, sender sends message and receivers only receive. Okay, sender sends message and receivers only receive. There is no scope for feedback, and there is a certain concept of noise through the channel. What are the advantages of this channel model of communication and the disadvantages? The first one is good at audience persuasion and propaganda setting. Good at audience persuasion and propaganda setting. So the sender, the way they have, or he or she has encoded, or as an institution, how they have encoded the message, they can reach out to a larger section of audience, and they can actually persuade the audience to comprehend the message and start getting influenced. So the scope for propaganda setting is largely possible. Whatever message I want to offer, I will kind of create in a certain way, keeping the audience in mind, and I can propagate any idea that I want to do so, because the audience is anonymous. The audience is not somebody who can affect the creation of the content in any way. So it sets a right tone for propaganda based messages, and it can lead to different kind of audience influences and perception building through various acts of persuasion. Second is intentional results. So I would encode the content, or the sender is going to encode the content in an intended way, keeping the results in mind. He or she, or as an institution, they have already anticipated a certain amount of results, and they have created the content accordingly. So these are the advantages of linear model of communication. Now what are the disadvantages? The disadvantages is that the communication is not continuous, as there is no concept of feedback. So it's not cyclical, it's not something that follows a circular method where the sender sends the message through a channel to the receiver, and the receiver, after decoding the message, offers a certain feedback to the sender. That thing is not possible. Okay, so the process of communication is not continuous. It breaks right when the receiver receives the message. No way to know if the communication was effective. So there is it's an anticipated result, but there is no scope, there is no accuracy in terms of understanding whether the communication process has followed an effective way. Okay, like I said, there is a concept of noise. Second thing is, unless the receiver offers whether they like the content, whether they dislike the content, whether they agree to the content, whether they had some sort of understanding of the content in terms of building the perspective, or if the message has played any kind of a functional role in their lives or not, we will never get to know that, because this is a one-way process. Now linear models follows largely two types. First one is the Aristotle's model of communication. Okay, Aristotle, who was a Greek philosopher and also the teacher of Alexander the Great, offered a model which is called the Aristotle's model of communication. Now, what does it focus on? What are the primary elements that Aristotle's model follows in terms of understanding how the communication process works? So what Aristotle proposed was before 300 BC, and it's kind of works as a base model for all other communication forms of model. So Aristotle's model follows the speaker, the speech, the occasion or the context in which the speech is made, and who is the audience who is listening or who is consuming this speech, and what is the effect or impact on them. Now, this effect is not to be construed as a direct impact of it. There is a certain amount of effect of the speech on the audience which is offered by the speaker, but no way it can be quantified. So Aristotle's model primarily focuses on the speaker and the speech. What is the content and who is offering the content? It can be broadly divided into 5 primary elements. Okay, the speaker, the speech, the occasion, the audience, and the effect. This model of communication is a very speaker-central model, which means, again, like I told in the linear model, that the focus is essentially on the content creator or the content producer or the source. So the speaker plays a very significant role here. It's highly used to develop public speaking skills and create a propaganda at that time. So it is less focused on intrapersonal or interpersonal communication. The focus is not on interpersonal or intrapersonal communication. The focus is on a larger group, targeting people where public speaking skills are given primacy, or creation of any kind of a propaganda activity is given focus. The speaker must have a very good nonverbal communication with the audience, like eye contact. So these are influential tools. These are tools through which you can reach out to a slightly larger segment of audience, and they can look at you as somebody who has the necessary oratory skills to influence their minds. So everything, the gait of the speaker or the way the speaker communicates plays a very significant role in this model of communication. What are the primary elements of a good communicator, or somebody who is influential in nature, or somebody who we can say that is a good public speaker? Okay, so what Aristotle talks about is are 3 important or the key ways through which we can judge or we can look at the communicator. First one is the ethos. Okay, second one is the pathos, third one is the logos. Now let's look at what ethos means, what pathos means, and what logos means. The first one is ethos. Ethos focuses on the credibility of the speaker, how credible the speaker is, whether the speaker can actually offer something which makes sense. Okay, whether the speaker has the background in order to offer content which is understandable in nature, something that can be influential, whether the speaker actually offers something in terms of the content which is relatable to the audience. So every characteristic features of the speaker which makes him or her credible in front of the audience. It could be the profile, it could be somebody who carries a long history of public speaking, so on and so forth. So ethos is primarily focused on the credibility figures of the speaker in front of the audience. Second one is called pathos, which is interconnected to the emotional bonding part, whether the speaker is being able to connect emotionally to the audience or not, through the matters, through the content, whatever they say, whether they're creating some sort of an interest which the audience can take away from. People connect at an emotional level. So as a speaker, as a good communicator, whether I am understanding the pulse or the nature of the audience, whether I'm getting the right vibe from the audience, and what can I do in order to offer content through which they can stay connected, or they can get more attracted or more interested in the kind of content that I'm offering. So pathos largely connects with the emotion of the people. Third one is logos, which translates to the sense of reason. Okay, whether the content that the speaker is offering is fact based, whether there is certain amount of believability in that content, whether as an audience, whether I'm going to, or as a listener, I'm going to buy whatever they're going to say or not, whether I'm going to believe in that. So in order to create that sense of believability, the speaker, because of the privilege of being there, must understand that the content got to be fact based. The delivery of the message has to be on the basis of certain amount of facts, which is true to the nature, and through which a certain sense of reasoning can be developed. What are the criticisms of the Aristotle's model of communication? Why it kind of took a setback, or why there are few people who offer a certain kind of criticism around this model? What are the criticisms? First one is there is no concept of feedback. This is a one-way track from speaker to audience, and it can only focus on the content and the speaker. There is nothing that the audience can only get affected by it, but audience cannot offer their feedback in terms of whether the content was likable or not. Okay, there can only be one-way takeaway. So there is no concept of feedback. There is no concept of communication failure like noise or barriers. The focus is not on noise or barriers, though there is noise and barriers that exist in every kind of every process of communication or every model of communication. Here the model is not focusing on the noise and barrier. It could be, but it's not addressing that. Third one is the model can only be used in public speaking. So when you are primarily focusing on a larger segment of audience, it could be through mass communication, or it could be a larger group communication. This model works when when the speaker or the communicator is addressing a larger segment of audience, and it cannot focus on intrapersonal or interpersonal or relatively very small group communication where there are only 4 or 5 people. No, it doesn't work that way. The larger the audience, this model works, because they don't have to bother the source creator, the source or the creator, the content producer doesn't have to focus on feedback. They can create propaganda based content, they can offer whatever they want to. It is highly influential when the larger segment is watching or listening or viewing or reading into the kind of content that is offered by them. The next model is called the Lasswell's model of communication. Okay, this Laswell's model of communication is developed by this communication theorist called Harold D. Laswell in 1948. This model is also called as action model or linear model or a one-way model of communication, like it is spoken about before. Okay, this model is considered to be one of the most influential model of communication, and we'll see why this is so. Okay, what are the primary elements of the Laswell's model of communication? What are the primary elements? We need to understand this, that the primary elements are these 5 as presented. One second. Because the light was on, I'm sorry, the flickering happened, so I just switched it off. Yeah, so these are the primary elements. First is the who is always the sender, the source, right? Second is who says what, who is offering what kind of content. Second one is the message. So the sender is the who, message is the content that is offered. So who says what, through which channel? Okay, channel is the medium through which this content is offered. Like for example, right now I am the sender, the message is this session. I am using my mobile phone and this to record content which is being played back through a presentation on the laptop. So these are the channel to whom you are the people who are the receivers, people who are interested in this kind of content, people who are going to study this content or this model. So you are the receiver, and with what effect? The feedback. Okay, so who says what, through which channel, to whom, with what effect? So please pay attention, I am repeating again. Who says what, through which channel, to whom, with what effect? So there is a sender, there is the message, there is medium, there is the receiver, and there is the feedback. So the primary components of the Laswell's model is this. Okay, there's the sender, there's the message, there's the medium, there's the receiver, and there's the feedback. So sender is me, message is this content, channel is the laptop and the mobile phone through which the recording and the transmission is being possible. Fourth one is you are the receiver, you are the primary stakeholders who are going to consume this content. The next one is with what effect. So once this content is out there, and once you offer this you consume this content, you would have some sort of an impact, whether you understood it completely, whether you did not, there was some sort of a noise, or you could not connect with the delivery of the content. So you would have some sort of an impact of this content on you. And once you offer me that feedback, I'll get to know how to improve upon my presentation style, or I could work on bettering the content, so on and so forth. So the primary components of Laswell's model are these 5. You remember, who says what, through which channel, through whom, with what effect. Okay, now let's sort of do a breakdown of this and look at this model and why these things are crucial. Okay, so there are components. As you can see, there are 3 different columns and rows. First one is component, second one is meaning, third one is analysis. This is done to break it down for a better understanding of what you see. Okay, so who is basically, like I told you, is the communicator, the sender, the source of the message. Always remember, they play a very significant role in the linear form of linear model of communication. So who is primarily the communicator or the sender or the source of the message. They're the one who control the messaging part or create the messaging part. So who, the meaning is this. What is the analysis of it? Control analysis. Okay, why do we say control analysis? Because they are the one who are primarily regulating the content. If you remember, some time back I said that the mass communication processes always follow a regulatory mechanism, because they are device driven. So the people who are creating content are the ones who always control and regulate the content, the gatekeeping, right? If you remember. So control analysis happens through the component of who, or the primary content creator. Second, says what. Says what is, it translates to the content of the message, whatever it could be. It could be a film, it could be a lecture, it could be a news report, it could be the music that you're listening to, it could be a speech, so on and so forth. So the who says what says what translates to or means that what is the content of the message, and what is the analysis that comes out of it is the content analysis. You have to primarily look at what is the material, the communication material that is given to you, offered to you, and how what sort of an analysis can happen. In which channel? Okay, channel is medium or the media that I have already spoken about, like in this case mobile phone and the laptop. And what happens here is the media analysis, whether what is media analysis, whether the medium was the right medium to offer the content. For example, we are doing this, our model of communication would have been direct, right, in the class, but because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown, because the schools, colleges and every educational institution like others are operating from a home-based sort of a model. So here I am creating content for you, which can be uploaded, which would be uploaded eventually on the cloud, so that you can at your own pace go through this content multiple times. So now the question that can arise is, when we do analysis, whether this style of offering content, whether it is successful or not, whether it has been effective or not, so on and so forth. So when we are doing so, we are trying to place the medium and trying to do the analysis of the medium, whether this medium had been effective or some other medium would have been effective. So when we talk about channel, we are primarily doing media analysis. To whom? The receiver of the message or an audience. Okay, you are the receiver of the message, or whosoever is listening or viewing or reading, they are the audience. So there, what we are doing is, we are primarily focusing on the audience analysis, like whether the exposure of the audience is good enough to understand the kind of content. For example, a 5-year-old might not be able to read a class 12-year-old's text in most cases, because the content that is offered in a class 12 textbook is relatively more difficult or complex to understand for a 5-year-old. So when we are looking at age, class, caste, exposure, economy of the audience, whether they are being able to comprehend the content depends on several yardsticks. So when we are looking at these yardsticks individually, primarily we are doing audience analysis. The audience responses, whether they like a certain content or they do not like a certain content, is focused on how they react or respond to it, and their reactions or feedback or responses is always triggered or based on the kind of understanding they have, and their understanding is stems out of their exposure, or how they have conducted themselves over a period of time because of certain external factors like who they are born into, where they have studied, whether they had enough money to buy certain kind of expository materials, so on and so forth. So when we are trying to look into the audience in a little more detailed manner, or the receiver here in this case, we are doing audience analysis. Last one is with what effect. Effect means the feedback of the receiver to the sender. Remember, if we follow a cyclical model, or if we follow a continuous model is the sender is receiving sender is offering the content through a certain channel to the receiver after receiving the content assimilates the content or understands and has some sort of a comprehensible feedback to the sender. So this feedback pattern is something that takes us to effect analysis. What is the impact? Is it sizable? Is it desirable? Is it what the sender intended to? For example, in this case, I want you to understand the content that I'm offering, which in this case is the models of communication. I want each of you to understand what what content I'm putting out and why this model, the models are crucial before we start discussing theories. So whatever feedback you offer would help me understand whether this content has been effective or not, or this way of presenting content has been effective or not. So all these things put together boils down to effect, boils down to whether the communication has been successful or not, unless you offer unless the sender's intended idea is actually complementing the feedback that he or she as a source or as a content creator. If it's not complementing, then the effect somehow could be better off. So to wind up this slide, so there is components. These are the components: who says what, in which channel, to whom, with what effect. Second is the meaning. Okay, you are now understand that what do they translate to, and what happens, what sort of theories later would emerge. And in theories mostly we tend to do a lot of analysis, so on and so forth. So there is control analysis, there is content analysis, there is media analysis, there is audience analysis, and there is effect analysis. Okay, so criticism of Lasswell's model of communication. So here are the few criticisms. It doesn't include feedback and it ignores the possibility of noise. It doesn't include feedback. Though feedback is there, it doesn't include into the model, and it ignores the possibility of noise like it was there in the earlier model. This is very linear and doesn't consider barriers in the communication process. There are several barriers in the communication process, which eventually we are going to figure out as we start discussing different models, which leads to different kind of conflicts. Because of the barriers, the communication process gets compromised in one way or the other. It doesn't reach the receivers the same way the sender intends to. So it's primarily linear. Third one is the focus is more on the resulting outcome and generally used for media persuasion. So whether I have successfully passed on this message or not. So as a sender, the focus is directly there, whether I have successfully passed on or not. So once the audience receives it, or once the people who are at the receiving end get the message, it ends there. And it's generally used for media persuasion, okay, primarily to propagate the larger segment of audience, feed them with content, feed the audience, feed the receivers with enough and more content all the time, that they are so overexposed and so burned by different kind of content that they would not have at the end of the day the scope and the opportunity to turn around and offer any kind of feedback, so to say. So that completes the Lasswell's model of communication. Okay, the Berlow's model of communication, the second one, right? So Berlow's model of communication, what it does is, in 1960, David Berlow postulated the Berlow's SMCR model of communication. Now, SMCR is something that we spoke about when we talk about, process of communication a little, in a very small way. And I'm going to talk a little extensively about the SMCR model of communication. Okay, this follows the Shannon-Weber model of communication. He describes factors affecting individual components in the communication, making the communication more efficient. That how individual components can play a very significant or a larger role in making the communication process a lot more efficient and effective. Okay, so here are the key features of the Berlow's model of communication. Berlow's model focuses on encoding and decoding, which happens before sender sends the message and before the receiver receives the message respectively. So before the sender sends the message or the content is encoded like I told you, and it is decoded by the receiver just before it is offered to the receiver. And largely the receiver decodes this message. So the process follows encoding and decoding pattern. Straight away Berlo goes into this these components, focusing primarily on encoding and decoding process and why they are crucial. Berlo's model mainly has 4 components to describe the communication process, that is SMCR. SMCR model is an acronym and it's easier to remember. So S stands for sender, M stands for message, C stands for channel or medium, and 4 is the receiver. R stands for receiver. Each of these components are affected by many factors. There are several ways in which you can read into these components and why they are important. So if we look at Berlo's model of communication, this is what the chart looks like. Okay, so the source encodes the message, sends it through a certain channel, which decodes the message for the receiver so that the receiver can understand or comprehend the message. So what are the crucial factors that impacts or affects these 4 crucial components? Okay, let's see one by one. First is source. As you may see, there are other blocks which focuses on the effective factors to the source. Let's look at it one by one. First is the communication skills. Okay, whether the source communication skills or the way the source speaks or the source writes or the source create content is desirable or not, is something that is impactful or not. So the communication skills with a certain amount of clarity is extremely crucial. So the content has to be concise. The content has to, in order to reach to its intended state, the communication skills of the source is extremely important, and it has to be clear, concise, and logical in nature. Second is the attitude of the source. Okay. When we talk about attitude, we talk about attitude from a social skills point of view. Whether that person is clumsy, whether the person's general point of view or approaches or perspectives of life have been open or not. So it would define what kind of content the sender is going to offer. If the person is loud, general in life, more or less is going to get translated into the kind of content that they're going to create. If a person is quiet and effective and believes in a scientific understanding or a scientific approach or a temperament in order to offer the content, it's going to be like that. The way you are generally defines your attitudes and approaches towards different things. Two people can approach the same kind of work in 2 different ways just because their attitudes or their point of view towards life is different. So this doesn't escape that. So the source's attitude has a certain impact on the process, on the message. Second is knowledge. Like I told you, whether that person is knowledgeable enough or not, whether they have gathered enough understanding around a topic they're going to talk about. So that's the reason why in Europe people pay so much money to go and attend public speaking sessions or public lectures by different intellectuals, because they over a period of time have devoted their life to research, to gaining knowledge, so on and so forth. So does the source carry enough knowledge in order to make the message sound credible? Second is the social system in which the source has born and raised. The social system could be traditional, orthodox in nature. Social system could be fairly liberal or open. So depending on the social strata of the society, depending on what economic and socio-political scenario that person has grown or raised, would define that person's understanding of how he or she is going to offer knowledge, or how they have understood the knowledge. For example, if a person is raised by a feminist mother, it is likely that that person is going to offer content which are pro women, not necessarily in all contexts, but the primary influence could be that. So understand that from which social system or from which social structure they are coming. Last point is, we are running out of time for this session. I'll discuss this last point and we'll close here, and then continue in the next session. So last point being culture. Okay, last point is culture. Culture, again, there are two. One is the culture you're born into, and second is the culture that you adhere to or you admire, or over a period of time you allow yourself to get influenced by. There are two ways. Culture, to my understanding and to a larger understanding of society, is dynamic in nature. Okay, it evolves over a period of time. We are not born into the same culture. You are not born into the same culture I was born into, or my parents, or your parents for that matter, right? So over a period of time, culture has evolved, and some culture are traditional, rooted in that sense. Some are ever evolving. So whether as either as a content creator or as a content receiver, doesn't really matter, but as somebody who very strongly believes in offering content to a larger segment of the society, it's very important how you have understood culture, and what is your interpretation of culture, and whether you have pre-visualized the content through the kind of cultural influences that you have had over a period of time. And this could be contemporary in nature, it could be something you're born into, so on and so forth. So your culture as a source matters extremely. It plays a very significant role in designing the message, in defining the message for the receiver. Okay, so far whatever we have covered, I hope that the session has been helpful to you. I'll see you in the next session, and we'll continue like I said earlier in the session. Thank you so much. Good day.